Okay, yeah. Okay, so we have just audio. There is somebody in the chat there. So yeah, it says there's two watching now, but one of them is asleep.
They're telling us about a haunt.
Never heard of it. Goes over time. Five, four, one.
Hello, everyone.
Stand by. Stand by. Stand by. Again, because I may have Roy seats going.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the Scare Factor podcast. Before we get started, please don't forget take a moment to subscribe and leave us a comment or review. It helps the algorithms know that we're doing a good job and you like what we're doing. For those of you that don't know who we are the screen teams for thescarefactor.com. Our goal is to bring you as much entertainment value and information as we can that pertains to the Halloween, haunted house, and haunted attraction industry. Talking now is Tyler. I'm joined by my wife Nora. Everybody say hi, Nora.
Hi,
And
Nora.
we are we are Team Zombie and the co-owners of the Scare Factor, and of course we have Brian with Team Scaligore. Everybody say hi, Brian. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Brian.
And so today we are talking about bucket list haunts, where we are dying to go. And I think to get started, we should probably define um, what a bucket list haunt would be. And I think for just for total disclosure here, like we're not making this like an official list of the best haunted houses that we think are out there or anything. I mean, obviously they're ones that we want to get to before we kick the bucket, but it's not any kind of official top haunt list or anything like that. We're just chit chatting about places we want to go.
Yeah, and when we had to determine what our bucket list haunts would be, it's super, super hard to just pick so many. You want to say all of them? Because me, personally, I want to go to all haunts. But if we have to narrow it down, we will talk about the ones where we will narrow them down too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, what's you go ahead and kick us off here, Brian. What's some that you or how would you define a bucket list haunt?
So I think
Whether you've been to one or not, or does it have to be one you haven't been to? What's going on?
a bucket list haunt is one that you want to say before you die. I think is the basic definition of any bucket list activity, right? Something you want to
Right.
do before you kick the bucket, right? So I think when we talk about bucket list haunts, shows that you want to see that you probably haven't seen yet. It's probably why it's on your bucket list because you haven't seen it. You really want to. Um, I think there's going to be a few cases where, maybe you have been to the show or you've been to perhaps an off-season event at a show, and really the full thing is still kind of on your list because you haven't really gotten that full experience that you wanted in the first place. Um, in my case, one of those is Haunted Overload. I went this past October, during Columbus Day weekend, and I couldn't have asked for a better weekend to do it. The weather was beautiful. It was like, oh my gosh, it was gorgeous. Um, and the drive
Right.
out from New York was wonderful. It was like a summertime road trip. Um, but the problem was that as we're all aware, the world is spinning the opposite direction now. We've got this pandemic going on, and so because of that, this past October, a lot of haunts were running at half capacity, which meant actors and customers. So for a lot of places, you weren't really getting that entire full show experience that you would normally get, right? And it's not the fault of the haunt, right? They wanted to open, they did everything they could to open. So, Haunted Overload, I think their full show with all the actors, with all the everything going on, it's still on my bucket list, right? I want that whole experience. And we talked about this a little bit before we started the show this evening, and it's on your list too. But you
Yes, it
guys have
is on
never
our
been.
list.
Right.
We've heard a couple of the teams talking about, how it is out there. Of course, we see all the photos and promo stuff that they put out, all those larger
Pictures.
than life structures and everything that they build, the big skull houses and big castles and things that they have out there. Not castles, but mansions, and
Mm-hmm.
everything's just meant to be experienced. And I really liked how our one of our other teams, Team Hallowoosh, summed it up in one of his reviews. He said it verbatim was that it basically embodies the spirit of Halloween. It's not like necessarily the scariest haunt that there is out there, but just everything that there is and the way that they do all their special effects and their lighting, they just really create a really immersive environment that just sinks you into the true spirit of Halloween. And I just think that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's having gone for my first time this last year, like I thought for sure that, the big skull that everybody's got a picture of, I would have thought for sure that like this is somewhere in the middle of the haunt, that like people are like really risking getting their ticket taken away, to get a picture of. But no, it's not. It's in that like beginning queue line before you ever enter the haunt. The big skull, the big I'm not sure what you'd call him. The big, I guess, pumpkin man um,
Oh,
is
the
there.
scarecrow,
Oh my God, yeah, the scarecrow. It's because he wears a pumpkin on the head. This thing is like 100 feet tall. It
right?
is it
Yeah.
is gigantic and it is so cool. Like you can't get it all in one picture. You really can't.
Right.
Um,
The
they
truth,
also
that's gonna be
had
one of those
this
places. If I go to it, you're gonna literally have to drag me back out of there. Like, are you
right
good?
like yeah, and they also had and it's on my Instagram. Which, by the way, if you're listening to the show, if you're a follower of the show, I'm not going to tell you my Instagram handle. That's a friends and family only thing. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll get a Team Skelligor Instagram this year. I just
Right. Yes,
I
yes,
don't like
you do.
social media that much. All right, like I deal
It's
with
all
it when
right.
I have to.
The scare factor's got one. Scare
Yeah.
factor's got one.
But
Well,
they
no,
had this like
not like
awesome they had this awesome jack o' lantern display. Like it was all real jack o' lanterns that were custom carved and painted and stuff, and it was so cool. There's a whole bunch of them.
It's amazing.
It is.
Another one that we've got on our list is, and this is one that we have been to before. But even having said that, it's still just a place that we've got to return to because of how beautiful and amazing the place is, and at least for me anyway. And that is Hell's Gate up in Chicago.
which we were
And
discussing it before the show too.
yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
really
Hell's Gate's on my list as well.
and it's that place is just really amazing. They tried to create the whole experience where if you uh, what's the
It's an
if you oh
adventure.
you find, yeah, it's not just a haunted house, it's an adventure, and that's pretty true. um
So
and
first you
if
go
you
through.
if you find the key, your ticket's free. That's what I
Yeah.
was thinking. Yeah,
Yeah. You go through. Well, first
you have
you
to
can't
find the
drive
haunted.
there,
Yeah.
so you have to be taken there, and you don't know where you're going, and then you're dropped off in the middle of the woods to nowhere, and you're in a line, and then your journey begins in the haunted woods that you must make it through to find the haunted mansion, which is up on a hill surrounded by iron gates, and it's just amazing.
It's beautiful. It's a two-story. They've got real balconies. We did a behind-the-scenes tour once, and you can actually walk out on the balcony of the second floor, and it's freaking awesome. The whole entry. I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't been there yet, but even their if you've been to Statesville, they kind of do kind of the same thing. It's a zombie army thing, I think, but they do kind of an intro show with some of the main characters of the haunt, and they do it for like 30 to 50 time, and then they run you through and separate you that way. They're able to give the shows to more people at a time and then work you through the haunt, and it just makes it
It keeps their flow going.
keeps the flow going wonderfully. Absolutely. But the actors interact with you in the meantime, so that as they break you up into smaller groups, you're not just standing there with your thumb up your butt and all this stuff. Everything to look at. I mean, even if it was bright sunny outside, it would look like it was nighttime and storming outside because they've got effects in all the stained glass windows, and it's I could go on forever. But
Right. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so definitely, I think Hell's Gate is a bucket list haunt for anybody that's listening that hasn't been there.
And if you go to Chicago, I mean, all the haunts we've been to in Chicago, but Statesville, I would try to hit Statesville and Hell's Gate in the same night.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I think another one that is on a lot of people's lists if they've never been there is Netherworld, which is it's got to be my number one bucket list haunt, right? And I think the reason for that is because like everything they do is just larger than life, right? Like and what you guys were telling me is that the actors there are very much conga line actors because they do see a ton of traffic every night. So the actors have to learn how to deal with that, and they have to learn how to, you know, handle that sort of traffic flow. But which I guess is the case wherever you are in Atlanta, you just have to deal with tons of traffic. I guess that's
Mm-hmm.
life in Atlanta.
Oh, first time we went to Atlanta, it was like a 8-lane
Oh,
Daytona 500 going around
yeah.
the outer loop there. It's like, holy cow! Yep, we're in Atlanta. Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
mind getting there.
Yeah, so the actors, yeah, whatever they're conga line actors, but that I think that's not the reason that I want to go, right? The reason I really want to go is because I want to see what this huge budget can really do and what can be done with real amounts of money, right? When you think about your local haunt that's it's been around for maybe 10 years or so, like they're on a shoestring budget. I can almost guarantee it, right? The money
Right.
that they're bringing in every season in October is going to paying their actors if their actors are paid. It's going to, taxes on the land. It's going to upkeep around the property. It's going to so many other things that like they don't have this budget to, buy all these brand new huge props and effects and, have the best of the best when it comes to everything, right? So, and that's part of the reason why when you go through some of these small haunts, you see walls that are made out of pallets because they found them on the side of the road and they were free, right? And they threw them in the back
Really
of the
well
pickup and off they went and they got repurposed. And I
really
think
well.
there's something to be said about that, right? It shows some ingenuity. Like you saw something, you said, "Hey, I could break that down and I could use it in another way." But
Lots of creativity points for that.
absolutely, and if you can make it look good, bonus points. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but again, there's something to be said about having a real budget, a real prop budget, a real set budget, a real amount of money that can be plunked down and say, I want to do this, make it happen. And
Right.
and I think Netherworld's kind of at that point where they can do that. I could be totally mistaken. They could be losing money every year for all I know, but everything I've seen in media uh, surrounding Netherworld has always been this, like they have these custom-made creatures and monsters that are out in the queue lines and in the haunt, and they have all these custom-made sets that are just Hollywood quality. And a lot of haunts say, "Oh, we've got theatrical quality sets." Like, what does that really mean, right? I don't think I'd see this in a movie anytime soon. Maybe an indie film, but I think Netherworld can really actually claim that because if from what I've seen of their sets, it's when you walk in there, you're like, yeah, this came out of a movie set. This looks like it is screen ready.
I can vouch for that for sure. I mean, we haven't seen them before they moved to their after they moved to their new location. We saw them back at the old place, but yeah, still when you go through there, definitely transported into a whole new world, and they are very, very good about what we call 360 scares. And even though it was kind of conga liney when we went during Halloween season, they still very good at doing even just their pop scares and keeping everybody flowing. And but even with all that, they don't chance on their costumes and everything else just because you're only going to see them for a split second. Like there's some tree monsters and things in there that you don't see even when you're walking right past them because they intentionally blend them in with the foliage on the walls and all the little forest section and all that kind of
I'll
thing.
never
So
forget there was somebody in some sort of aqua suit, and they were in an underwater scene. Yeah, and they had like this. It almost looked like a spaceman costume, but like the actor's head was inside this
it was a
big
huge
container.
scuba,
Yeah.
very whimsical almost. Like the bowl that the guy's head was in was like half of the size of the suit, and he had these little stubby legs and arms, and like there was a mermaid with a flipper and a trident sitting over here on this rock over to the side, stabbing her little trident at people and stuff. So that was her
with your mouth gaping open. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, then we had to go across this bridge, and then as we're going through, the vortex tunnel's turning one way, and it's got skeletons and bridge ropes and things all swirled. But it's not just normal vortex; like it spins both directions. Like it'll spin 3/4 of the way around, stop, and then turn back the other way. And it's like we can't tell what the hell is going on there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Now, when you
very,
say
very
vortex
unique.
tunnel, are you talking about the classic effect of the fog and the laser? Or are you talking about the bridge that
The
goes through the
spinning.
big
The
spinny
actual
tunnel?
spinning, yeah, the actual spinning tunnel, yeah.
Ah,
Whenever it's laser, whenever it's, yeah, we always call those a laser vortex. But
Mm-hmm.
the, when I would say vortex tunnel, it's just the traditional moving cylinder, yeah. But this one, like I said, they had it where they moved both directions, and that's just
Well,
something
another thing
I
that
don't think I've seen it anywhere else.
does more than most of your typical haunts that we visit around here, anyways. They've got actors that are suspended and can fly,
Oh yeah.
which Hell's Gate does as well, but
Mm-hmm.
and Statesville. But you don't expect people to go flying over your head or to come out from up in the tall 30-foot corner that seems like it's 30 foot. I don't know how tall it really is, but they just go from the corner down to right in front of you. And you're like, where did they come from?
With their lighting and a little bit of fog and stuff, they create a lot of dimension in that. Well, at least in their old location. Like I say, I haven't seen them in the new place, but I mean, it almost looked like we were actually outside. There was so much space above the scenes and around the scenes, and like you could see this faint monster over the horizon in the distance, or you'd see the silhouette of them anyway. And it's like, what the heck is over there? And then while you're focused off in Star's land, wherever you are, something else is coming out of the bushes and scaring you up close, and it's very.
They don't really have to create distractions in there other than their scenery because it's so mind blowing that you're constantly looking at something going, how did they do that? And the next thing you know, there's an actor that's got like the
clicky fingers, you know.
Mm-hmm. And they'll do that little click right in front of your face, and then they disappear, and you're like, where'd he come from? And then he'll get you again and again. And there's just so much distraction going on in there.
yeah, and I think that's the things you're mentioning. The other part of what we wanted to talk about tonight was, why are these haunts on our bucket list? Why do we place them so highly personally? And, maybe what could other haunts take away from that to, maybe make their shows a little bit better? And what you're talking about right there, I think is like that could be a huge takeaway for any haunt owner, right? If you can get people to be distracted by literally anything else, even if it's your scenery,
Mm-hmm.
you have accomplished so much right there, right? You all of a sudden can put anything in front of them and it's going to startle them. Might not be a huge scare, but you're going to get their attention.
Right.
Instead of people tiptoeing through and actually looking around the corners looking for the next thing to scare them, they're looking at all the other things around them that aren't there to scare you. You're just in all of the scenery, and that's the suspension of disbelief that we look for. But yeah.
Right, and then the other thing too is I was thinking about this when you were talking about Hell's Gate, where you get dropped off in the middle of the woods and you now have to walk through the haunted forest to the top of the hill to the haunted mansion, and it made me think like they are really telling you a story there. They
Oh,
are
they're
Absolutely.
really good story.
they are building a story. From the moment you're on property, they've started building that story, and I don't think enough haunts are doing that.
Oh yeah,
I
and when
can think
you're
of any haunt I've been to. The minute I get on property, I know I'm at a haunt. I know it
Mhm.
right away because there's 18 bajillion other people parking their cars. There's college girls clinging to their boyfriends because they're scared already. It's it's the huge families, and you're like, why would you bring your toddler to this? But okay, whatever. Not my circus, not my monkeys, I guess, right? And it's like you know that you're at a show. The story doesn't begin until you're really in the haunt, right? And from the way you describe it, like Hell's Gate, the minute you're on property, you're in the haunt. We're telling you this story, and you're a part of it whether you like it or not.
Mm.
Mhm. Yep, even before you go into the house, along with their theme, there's something in there that wants to come out and get you, and you will watch actors fighting it, literally, physically fighting it
Mm.
before they let you in.
They're like trying to keep you safe almost because they're like the butlers and stuff, and of the mansion, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're like, oh god, it's back, quick, run, go down this hall and turn left and blah blah blah, and so it's cool that you don't see most haunt actors are like they're all against you, they're trying to get you, and it's an interesting and refreshing change when you see those that are even still able to scare you, but they're like not out to get you almost. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
very good
And
character development.
I think a haunt like that is so much scarier just on a deeper level, right? Like, yeah, I can go to
It's
whatever haunt I
real.
want around here, and it's at the end of the day, it's all kind of the same thing, right? It's I show up, I bought my ticket, I go get my ticket, and then I go stand in line, and I gotta stand there and play with my phone because like the line is 4 hours long. And then I get on the hayride or I go into the house or whatever it is. Like I walk through and it's all the same like kind of jump scares, or like some of them are a little more innovative, but like the fact that they're weaving the story into the scares are part of the story. That right there like just makes it so much scarier because you're making your patron a part of your story now, right? And I think when you have that interaction and you have that involvement with your audience, they're more invested, right? They're more willing to put aside the like, yeah, these are just actors in costumes, these are just purpose built sets. Like they're willing to put that aside because all of a sudden you've thrust them into a role, and they're not it's not scripted how they're going to
Mhm.
react. Some of them might just kind of nonchalantly like, yeah, whatever, but I think for the
Oh
most
yeah.
part you're going to see people who are like, oh my god,
Yeah,
this
we,
is legitimately
we threw
scary.
'em- we threw them some curveballs and they were right on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like the part of the theme, like it's the darkness is in Hell's Gate, and somehow Tyler got touched by it, like when the door accidentally opened, and they were like, "Oh no, the darkness! It's consuming your arm."
So,
So they,
so a little bit of context. Like, so I'm at the time I was a maintenance guy and I was a welder, and like I had this scar on the side of my arm or something like that. And they're like, after we came out of the woods, we were approaching the house. They're like, there were zombies out in the woods. So they're like, did any of the zombies bite you, or any of you bit? And I'm like, oh, I've got this scar on my arm. I can show him. So I rolled up my sleeve and I'm like, I think one of them got me right here. And he's like, oh my god, no, the dark. He's gonna, you got the darkness. And so he starts doing the waving his arms around and flailing. He's like, we gotta cut it off. We gotta cut it off. And so he's like getting ready to karate chop me at the elbow, and like he's lining up, he's getting ready to do it, and he's rearing back, and so just yeah.
he looked at me and he said, "Are you sure it's okay if I do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And about that time, they opened the door and it was time to proceed. But I mean, they just took it and ran with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was great.
Totally cool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's and it kind of reminds me of this is now week number 3 that I'll talk about this. So, because I was an idiot last week and I totally forgot to unmute when I was telling my little story about KO's escape room. So,
Hmm.
yes, 2 weeks ago we talked about extreme haunts, and then last week I came to the realization that I kind of have experienced, I guess, immersive interactive horror to some degree, um, with the Atrophy Escape Ward at KU Industrial in Rome, New York. It's not a super hands-on experience by any means or anything like that, but there are a few scenes where like they will put their hands on you, I guess, but more to kind of guide you in the direction that you need to go to solve the puzzle. And there is one scene where an actor like goes just berserk, and I don't want to ruin it too much, but the basic idea is like you're on a hospital bed or a stretcher, and he puts the rails up and he starts throwing things around, including the beds, and like you go for a little ride. Um, but like that right there, like that's I think is the only horror esque experience that I've had, at least in this area, that is immersive in that way, like Hell's Gate is, or like The Darkness is, or whatever. Um, it's all of a sudden you're a part of their story,
Yep.
and like it makes it just so much more. It really like for somebody like me who's become so desensitized to the standard jump scare or whatever, like
Hmm.
it really gets my heart rate up and it gets my adrenaline going a little bit, and I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen next. I can't predict this because this is all so brand new to me, and I think it's really important for haunts to innovate in a way like that. That being said, there is one section where the uh, the doctor character he stops you and you're looking at a painting, and he goes, "This is the founder, whoever it was," and some people say they can still hear him. Can you hear him? He's in the walls, and he puts his ear to the wall next to this painting, and he goes, "Put your ear to the wall." And what he wants you to do is he wants you to put your ear on the drop panel, because then he's going to hit the button to hit the drop panel, and there's an
Right.
animatronic behind it. And as soon as we walked up to it, the first time I was there, we walked up. I was with a friend of mine, and he's doing his bit about, "Can you hear it? Put your ear to the wall. Listen." And I was like, "Oh yeah, no, dude, I can totally hear it." Wink, wink. Like, you know who I am. You know what I've
Yeah.
done. Like, we're not. No, I'm not putting my ear to a drop panel. I know better. Because I walked up and like, that's a drop panel. I could see
Right.
it. You know it because if you've seen enough of them, you're like, you could see the piece of wood. It's got a different grain from everything else around it, and
Right.
it's recessed behind the wall, and you could just see a mile away that is a drop panel. And so I got that effect right there. I didn't get my friend to put her ear up to the wall, but that effect scared her a little bit. And we were walking away, and I'm like, how'd you like the drop panel? And she's like, oh, there's a name to it. And I'm like, yeah, that effect is called a drop panel. But I thought that was funny that like he's trying to get me of all people to like play along with putting my ear to a drop panel, and no, we're not. No, we're not doing that. Not now, not ever. But I saw it coming. You gotta wake up a lot earlier to get pull one over on me.
So another one that Nora has on the list here is Terror Behind the Walls at Eastern State Pen.
Oh,
That's one
so
that we have
good.
not been to.
See,
So
Brian convinced
good.
me to go.
So
So
tell us
good.
about it, Brian.
We
So
want to
good.
go mainly because, well, we've met some of their crew. They seem like they would have some brilliant ideas,
Mm.
and ideas will take haunts many places. And their building, all the historical information about their building. Like, I like going for places that are either way out in the middle of nowhere that make you feel uncomfortable as you're driving, or places that are in authentic buildings are some of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go there just because it looks amazing. The haunt seems like it's pretty large, and Brian has told us before that it's very good.
It is incredible. I don't think you'll find a better. I don't think you're gonna find a better haunt in an authentic location than Terror Behind the Walls. Um,
So,
there if so you guys have never been, but I'm sure you've heard. They are a little bit hands-on. They're a little more hands-on than most other places, but not they're not extreme haunt hands-on. They're not the victim experience hands-on, right? They
Right. We're cool with.
Yeah, right. And I think like most people who've been frequenting haunts for a while, like once they understand the extent of where it's going to go, they're pretty okay with that.
Right. Right.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is you show up with a group, they'll single one of you out, they'll grab you and take you behind the scenes and drop you in another room away from your friends. And I personally love that so much because like I try to lose my friends in haunts. I do it on purpose because like I want to see more of these scares directed right at me. I want that full effect. I want to see all of it. And especially as a reviewer because like I really want to take in all of that energy that the actors got. I don't want to view that as a third party. I want that full whole in your face scare.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you get pulled away from your group and all of a sudden you're on your own, like that's what you get.
Right.
And for me, it's like it's the greatest thing in the world. But I can understand why some people don't like that.
Right.
Um,
It
but Nora,
always
you
reminds
you
me of.
you've alluded to the fact that you may enjoy certain extreme-ish attractions more than the average person, which I think you would absolutely adore Terror Behind the Walls.
Oh, I think I would
And
too.
speaking of Eastern State Penn, if you go in their off season, it's like it's like almost like a museum. You can go and get guided tours, and you can go take pictures and stuff inside. Like it used to be a real prison. Um,
Yep.
and I've never been in their off season. I've seen a lot of stuff about it. I was going to go last year, and then the pandemic, and I don't think I'm going to go this year just because now I have to buy a new car. So like travel is not really in the question this year. So, um,
Right.
but
It,
yeah,
it reminds me of the West Virginia pin where we went to
Last year.
last year because some of our haunts had to take a hiatus for different stuffs going on. But yeah.
Yeah, they're in a real prison too, and it's we did the daytime tour and the haunted house, and that was pretty cool.
but yeah, that's
But just getting in those real authentic buildings like that they can take advantage of. And some haunts in real authentic buildings, you can tell it's a haunt inside of a building,
Right.
but some of them you can't. And the ones where you think you're part of that world now, kind of like Blood Prison, is a pretty good example of you don't really know you're in a haunted house because they use so many natural features of the prison itself.
Mm-hmm.
And like Blood Prison, they'll grab you and put you in a jail cell and shut the door by yourself, and
But
it's
it's legit,
interesting.
paint peeling off the walls, and it's like the real iron bars, and you go through the cell blocks that are 2, 3, 4 stories tall with all the prison cells lined up, and it's
You walk into like
they
this
add
one.
stuff to it to make it the
Mhm.
haunted house, but they don't build so much that it takes you out of that. They allow
Right.
the building to do most of the heavy lifting there.
Yeah, I
yeah,
think Brian likes looking at effects and haunts that do have the big high budgets. He wants to see how they could do those.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably on that same line because of your favorite haunts, and then I'm over here like I like the ones that just look real, the ones that feel real, and I like the actor driven haunts too. Those are probably my favorite. So like Netherworld's not one of my personal favorite haunts. I agree that everybody in the world should see it at least once, but I'm more on the I kind of like the haunts that more so a lot of people haven't really heard about.
yeah. I think
That
some of
was the
my favorite haunts that I have seen are more actor driven. But like you were saying, like I do really enjoy going and seeing what that huge budget can really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, I mean, it's not so much that there was a big budget, but I mean, creativity at scale does at some point start costing a little bit of money, and even though there was a lot of dollars that were needed to make it possible, somebody still had to build it.
Right.
And that's what I think I appreciate with
Well,
some
I've
of the
seen
ones
big
that are.
budget haunts where you go through and you see the same mask that you see over and over
Mhm.
again. And like he's saying, Netherworld creates a lot of their own custom
You
costumes.
don't see a lot of that in Netherworld.
Yeah, we love going places where we see things that we've never seen before, which, becomes kind of hard when you visit so many.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think overall, like yeah, I like going and seeing what that huge budget can do, but like I like seeing what that huge budget can do when used correctly, right? You know,
Yes.
those custom costumes and masks and makeup jobs, like it's not free, right? At a certain point,
Right.
it starts to cost a lot of money because you're using a lot of latex, and
Mm.
so like yeah, that's part of that big budget. So I guess I'm more in line with that, with your philosophy too, Tyler, where like I appreciate the hard work that's gone in and the creativity, but I want to see the upper end of that creativity, right? I want to see what can really
Right.
be done. Can you really make that thing that you're thinking of and make it
And
real?
for, and for us, one of the other ones on our list, this is a good transition into that. It's hard for us to find a 360 hayride. Like
It's incredibly hard to find.
there's really not that many around here, and I know that there's some large budget hayrides around the world, but one of them that sticks out on the website as having a lot of traffic and a pretty cool website is Dead End Hayride, and they're in Wyoming, Minnesota. And first, it would be cool to go visit a haunt in Minnesota because we like visiting haunts in different states because they kind of all bring something different to the table. But just going and reading their website, like just a small blurb from their hayride section says you'll experience unspeakable horror, cryogenic blasts, explosions, and over-the-top pyrotechnics.
Explosions and pyrotechnics.
So it's like, well,
I'm a firebug, so I like. I
Yeah,
like.
yeah. I mean, I grew up playing with fires, so uh,
That explains more. No.
yeah, yeah, right. This explains a lot, doesn't it?
yeah. After we noticed a lot of traffic on the site going to Dead End Hayride, we had to put it on more towards the top of our bucket list haunts because we've heard a lot about it. It's kind of one of the haunts that you hear the most about from Minnesota, as there's not a whole lot over there, but
Right.
it
Still,
sounds like it would be amazing, and they have I think 4 attractions, so you'd kind of be there all night, and I think that would be a good one to.
from what we can tell by looking at them, they're probably on the same. I don't want to say they're on the same because I've never been there. I've never seen any of the haunts that I'm getting ready to say, but they look like they're on the same playing field as like LA Haunted Hayride and some of those, other kind of big.
When it comes to hay rides, that yeah, it seems like they have a larger production
more
in their
production value,
hayride.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Demon Acres here has a pretty high production hayride. I don't know that I'd call it 360 per se, but they definitely try to hit you from different sides. It's not all just focused in front of the wagon or just to one side or the other. It's they definitely try to hit you from other sides, but
Right.
the way you guys are talking, like there's another level beyond what I've seen then.
I believe there is.
Hmm.
We haven't seen it either, but I mean we have.
Not in person.
We've seen Indiana Fear Farm's hayride is way different than everybody else's.
I was just thinking about that about 2 minutes ago, and there's a few parts through there like you're going between two full scale pirate ships on this hayride. Like they built huge flipping pirate ships, and each one of them's got about 40 actors on it each. And there's flying back and forth overhead on zip lines, and they're battling between each other, and they got the cannons going off shooting. But then some of them, like there'll be somebody up in one of the crow's nests, and they're on a bungee cord, and they'll push each other off of the crow's nest and go falling about 20 feet over top of the hayride. It's like, holy cow!
You look up and there's somebody falling towards your head.
You're not used to seeing somebody just take off dropping out of 50 feet up in a tree or something. It's like,
once we saw that, we were like, yeah, we're missing some really good hayrides out there somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Not saying that the ones we don't visit aren't good, but I know that there's different levels and there's more out there somewhere. They're just further away from us.
You start seeing so much of that stuff coming from, any given particular haunt, and it starts to become a bucket list haunt.
And hayrides are hard too because you're on a ride and everything you can see before you get to it.
Yes, it's hard to get that element of surprise because you can always hear the people walking up and running up to the wagon like, oh, somebody's coming, or some of them incorporate sound to probably help reduce that a little bit. But
and I don't think to this day we've ever seen a hayride that runs an actual theme.
Yeah,
True.
yeah, neither have I. A lot of it is a lot of hodgepodges of themes and. And I guess it kind of works, right? Because you can kind of get that transition going, but
Brian, what's another one on your list?
Hollywood Horror Nights, I think.
Aha.
And
We
not
haven't been there either.
because not so much because like it's one of those like really high production ones. Like yes, I want to see it because it's so high production. I want to see what $100,000 can really do in the hands of creative experts. Universal's creative team. I want to know what they can really do when it comes to this, horror type stuff. Um, but I want to see what can really be done with intellectual property, right? So many haunts do the
Right.
Michael Myers, the Jason, whatever, the classic tropes, and it's always like never quite good enough. They
Mhm.
never really have that much of an audition process for those actors. They're like, "Oh, you're tall, you could be Michael Myers." Like that
Hmm.
was it. That
Right.
was your
Mine's
audition
the other
process
day
for
that
him.
we saw the Michael Myers that had boobs.
Yep.
About Nora's height, but she's about 5 foot tall, and God bless her, she's probably oh, I don't know who it was, or I don't really honestly don't even remember which one it was, but she's probably 300 pounds,
Oh God.
and poor lady, but she had the blue bibs on and the white Michael face, and it's like that is not Michael Myers. It looks like Michael Myers. Doesn't sound
Bless
like it
her heart
whatsoever.
for bless her heart for getting out there and acting and doing what she likes to
For
do. But
trying it, yeah. I'm sure they had nobody else to play that person that night, so
Yeah.
that's what they did. But you do see that
Yeah.
a lot, and to go to Universal to where they own the
They
rights to these
actually are allowed
characters.
to
right.
use it.
Yeah, and I don't know, but I'm sure that some of the stuff they're using is probably from the movies, or you can probably see some of that stuff there somewhere.
Yeah, I
And
don't
obviously,
think the things inside the haunts are directly screen used. Just because
okay.
like you don't ever want to risk that, right? Those things are generally worth quite a bit of money. And not only that, but like it never really belongs to the ownership of that sort of thing is really murky. So it would just be a nightmare of trying to actually use the things that were legitimately used in the movie. But when Cabin in the Woods came out, right? Joss Whedon film, phenomenal horror movie, like one of the best I've seen in recent years. Um, when that came out, the following Halloween, they did Cabin in the Woods, and from what I heard, it was really, really good because they had all those monsters from the movie within that haunt. I think that's more what I want to see is like when you own those characters and when you own that IP, what can you really do to make that come to life? Make those movie characters come out of the screen and get my face, right? Um,
Yeah. Of
and not
course,
only
we've
that,
seen
but
it from
like
the
I just
YouTube
love
videos and
Universal,
stuff,
so
but right, right. Yeah, and you see the YouTube videos that go out and people doing their little walkthroughs of some of the scare zones and the haunts down there, and it looks like they do a pretty decent job of trying to recreate and make little I would call them mini haunts because there's only hard to fit a 30-minute haunt into the flow of a theme park, but
Hmm.
from what I gather, they're all probably between 2 and 5 minutes each.
And on the amusement slash theme park ones, we have Not Scary Farm on our list.
Yes. I think they're probably on your list too, ain't they, Brian? Going to Not Scary Farm?
yeah, but it's less about going to see their hunt. I've heard a lot of great things about that, and I'd really love to see it. I just want to go to Knott's Berry Farm because I love theme parks. Like I'm a Hershey fanatic, if you didn't know, but
I picked up on that.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, like I love Hershey, but like I love theme parks in general, and Knott's Berry Farm is one of those ones that I've always kind of wanted to go see. And I guess part of the reason is because like there's so many good theme parks in California in general, right? Six Flags Magic Mountain, which is probably one of the largest theme parks on the West Coast. Um, Disneyland in California, in Anaheim, Universal Studios, Hollywood, SeaWorld, San Diego, like just all of those. I want to go see and enjoy those.
Right.
Um, Less so because like they do Halloween stuff, but more so because I love roller coasters.
Right.
Take it all in while you're out there. It's
Yeah,
Hmm.
probably a
right.
destination in
Yeah.
itself, but
We want to go as we've watched hundreds of YouTube videos of live walkthroughs going through them, and like they had that one that was the pumpkin eater attraction, and like you're inside of a pumpkin that's like carved out, and there's like pumpkin seeds just hanging from pumpkin guts as you're walking through, and all the characters in there match, and it just looks like you're literally in a pumpkin. And it's like, I've never seen that before. And they also have really good distractions in their videos. So to me, if you can create a distraction to where it's displayed on the video and actually scaring people from a point of view video, you're doing something right. Because sometimes we watch a lot of walkthroughs and we're like, there's nothing going on. Or you get a lot of characters up in the video camera, trying to take their fame, and they're not really trying to scare the people. And if you watch a lot of Knott's videos, though, they do scare a lot of people in their videos. And so does Universal, but I think it would be a very good place to go. And the roaming queue line actors remind me kind of Netherworld, and they do a lot of sliding and stuff over there, which I'm convinced some of that sliding come from that area because it's becoming more prominent here with like your queue line sliders, but they have a lot of those over there, and it's just like a different level of immersion. And you don't expect actors to come at you at your feet, or under ropes because you're standing next to a guide rope for a line. You're like, oh, I'm safe. No, they'll go right under the rope. So,
right.
Another one on our list is 13th Gate down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Um, we have had multiple teams review 13th Gate, and we've talked to a lot of haunt owners that have gone on off-season tours, and they all agree that it is a must-see show.
Mm-hmm.
So none of us on this chat right now have been, so we don't really have any comments on it other than we really want to go.
Like, gotta get down there. Heard so much about it, we just gotta see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if they do any more things with like the legendary haunt tours or something, we're gonna have to get in on that. Ryan, you have another one on your list?
Yeah, I don't think there's really too many more on my list. It's my list is actually really short, as far as bucket list haunts go, because for me, I look at a lot and I'm just like, it all kind of boils down to the same thing that I see all over the place, right? It's they're all kind of using the same type of scares, the same type of effects because they're all running on the same shoestring budget. I think really the ones that I really have to see someday, like the ones we discussed before, because they're doing different things. That being said, like if anybody's ever got a suggestion for a haunt that's really doing something different, and I mean they got to be really different. They can't just be like one effect that's like, oh, this is super different. Like, yeah, it's cool. I'll go check it out if I happen to be in the area, but it, it's got to be different, different. It's got to be Netherworld huge. It's got to be Hell's Gate, storytelling different.
I would argue that just in the light of it, I don't think it's got to be quite that scale. But the reason I say that is because we've got a couple other ones that we wrote down that may not necessarily be, like they're ones that we go to all the time, so they're not on our bucket list necessarily because we've seen them so much. But like, if you're not from around this area or something, and you are looking for something totally different, like you're talking about, there's a couple around here that we feel would fall into that category. One of them is USS Nightmare, and that's only because that one is a actual boat floating on the Ohio River. It's an old uh, steamboat. It's an old dredging vessel. They used to basically scoop out dirt from the bottom of the river and keep the channel clear for all the barges and stuff to go through and not get hung up on the bottom.
And well, 1 year it broke free from the where it was tied up, and it actually went down the Ohio River and crashed into a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And they have preserved the original damage on the ship.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you pull in and park, that's the first thing you see is this damaged ship floating on the water.
You see like the whole back of the boat, like all the walls and the ceiling and everything is just caved in and crushed because it freaking hit a bridge during a big flood.
And they do great with their storyline. Mm-hmm. Like they have a story that mostly makes sense all the way through. Sometimes the haunt can take you 40 minutes, so it's a long show.
It is very, very long. You go through 2 or 3 levels of it, and it's the authentic boat that you're going through. Like some of the lower levels have got steel floors and big rivets that that are holding the floors together. You go up they've built stairs in where the paddle wheels used to be on the sides of the boat.
But they're see through, so when you
But
go from
you're walking on grading, so you're
Mhm.
walking over top of the actual river as you're going up to the second floor and down, and you go through the barracks. They've got a freaking vortex tunnel up there.
very, very cool for a nautical haunt
You're
because it's
talking to the
not very common.
yeah. You meet the captain, and some of them look like they're uh, barnacle-y, I guess is the word. Like they've been rotting under the water, sort of like Pirates of the Caribbean kind of stuff, almost.
Yeah, it's a dead
Uh,
crew.
yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
clear that they're not normal.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
They really
yeah.
embrace the nautical theme.
I
And
think
that's
I've
just
heard of
something you
that
don't
one
see very
before.
often.
Yeah, and if you're gonna be in the area of USS Nightmare, you might as well hit Dent Schoolhouse. That's
You can't
within like
by,
10 minutes of them.
can't bypass Dent.
Yeah, they've
And
got
they do real good with
both
the
of these haunts
schoolhouse
have
thing.
larger budgets, but
Mm-hmm.
they're very different. Like the Dent Schoolhouse is legit in a schoolhouse,
Mm-hmm.
and on busy nights they are a conga line haunt, but they use some universal style scares, I would say, and their sets are amazing. Like they
Yeah.
always have very high nines for the special effects category because they've got just so many cool looking things that are effective in there. Like it's not
The
just that you're
skull.
looking at it, but they're functional and they do things and
Like, and they figured out a way to make clowns work inside of that one because they had the PTA carnival or something coming, for the school, so they had a reason to
Mhm.
do clowns in a few cases, and they another one they did a levitation effect in this big skull catacomb area. I forget how many skulls they said they
They
put in there. They had like
made
like
all these skulls in this giant room. All these skulls line the walls. It's like 4,000 or something. It's in our review.
four
But
thousand or 10,000 skulls. Some obscene number of skulls on these balls, but it's very excellent set design and good storytelling theming. They've always got the janitor Charlie. He's a key character every year, so we're always watching the backstories to see what Charlie's up to this year, and they always make that evident on your way through. And very good show as well.
yeah, and they're good at creating new characters, and then even their patrons in line have a general idea of who this character is and like what their story is because they're so good at pushing it right before haunt season that you're like, oh, I want to see Zobo this year because one year they came out with a new clown that's like their signature clown. And you can like see in pictures like this guy's not very friendly, and they kind of build this story up before you even get there, so it's pretty cool. I think you'd like it, Brian.
It sounds like something that I would definitely make a point to see. Um,
Yes.
you mentioned the USS Nightmare, and that made me think about one that probably I don't know that I'd call it a bucket list haunt, right? Because I'm not like really itching to go see it, but like if I had the opportunity, I would definitely go. The Queen Mary 2. Uh,
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
over there in
for
California.
sure.
yes.
Yeah.
Which like the boat alone is super haunted, apparently, supposedly. I'm a skeptic on the whole matter, but like authentic location
Right.
number one. So like that it ticks that box. A gigantic boat number two. They've got a fairly decent budget, I would imagine. So ticks that box, and like everything I've heard is that it's just they put on a really great show.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah,
different, right?
And
Like you're on a legitimately old haunted boat.
you're on a flipping boat.
Yeah.
There's not very many haunts that are on boats.
right, and that alone can freak people out that just don't like water, or a lot of haunts can't use water effects to scare people because it's just kind of hard to do that. So they're already getting under people's skin right there just because of their location. And I know not every haunt has that luxury. You've got haunts in strip malls and haunts that are completely built out of pole barns, you don't even know it, and things like that. But as long as they're immersive enough, I'm all in.
Absolutely.
I
There's
think I
one
think
more
that's the
that you
big
might
thing is the
enjoy.
immersion, right?
Yeah, no,
Yes.
for sure.
You got to feel like you're in there, and you need to make people wonder at some point, not unsafely, whether what they're experiencing is real or not. Like you don't want to hurt them or anything. You just kind of want to mess with the mind enough to for them to go, wait a minute, these characters, like, they're going to the porta potty and they're staying in character. Like, are these people characters? They like this all the time.
Right.
Because we've seen some that just, they don't, that guy doesn't break character all during haunt season. He stays in character even at home. And we're like, huh, wow. I mean, we have others to talk about. And then someone in the chat,
Yeah,
Chance brought up Enigma Haunt, which is down in Florida, and those of us that are hosting the show tonight have not personally been to Enigma, but we have heard a lot of great things about Enigma. Our team, Team Jurassic Shark in Florida, visits Enigma Haunt every year, and he always gives them really high praise. So if I was going to Florida to hit haunts, Enigma would probably be number 1 or 2 on my list because I'd want to also go to Universal. But I know they're 2 totally different shows, and Enigma is more actor driven, so I would probably appreciate Enigma more than most of them down there.
Absolutely. Always hear a lot of good stuff out of them. There was one more we wanted to drop in there real quick just because of how unique it is, and it's another one that's pretty local to us that, like I said, is just unique, and that is Grim Trails in Louisville. And that is because they are entirely themed on fairy tales, dark fairy tales. So, like, they've got for example, they've got one of the first areas you go through is Three Little Pig, or no,
Goldilocks.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's Goldilocks, and the bear comes up and gets her, and so they've got different creatures and stuff out there. Like they've got Hansel and Gretel, and they've got these.
Used to, yeah.
Yeah.
They changed their characters in and out a lot every year. So
they've got a Yeti in the snow cave or the ice cave. They've got
they have the real Dracula out there. They have a Jungle Book scene with Claw the snake in it.
Jungle Book scene's freaking cool, and it's totally kind of a side note is that during the rest of the year they do like landscaping and stuff. The people that run the haunt do landscaping, so they have all these weird types of plants and stuff growing out in this
and a lot
in
of
this
bamboo.
area. That's what I was getting at. They've got real bamboo growing all through their haunt.
So you don't see bamboo at many haunts, and it's thick bamboo. Like
they've going across rope bridges with bamboo all around.
And they're actually moving this year, and we were asking them like, what are you going to do about all the bamboo you planted? And they're hoping that they were going to be able to transplant some of it and then plant more, because once you plant that stuff, it just goes everywhere, and then they can kind of cut out where they don't want it to be. But yeah, they're very unique, and they're getting scarier.
Once, so they had the big dragon and all this stuff, and very, very cool place, very unique.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
there's all kinds that we need to go to, but
yeah, absolutely.
It's hard to narrow it down into an hour because
it's hard to fit it all in an hour.
Well, and we read everybody's reviews that come into the site, and we usually have over 200 a year. And you're like, oh, I want to go to that haunt, and like Brian's KO review made me want to go there and to their escape room. And once you get all those reviews coming in, and you can read like an in-depth little story of what goes on in these places, you're like, I want to go to all of them, just all of them, every one of them.
Well, when you hit the lottery,
What?
When you hit the lottery, let me know, because I'll have my bags ready. We can just go to all the haunts. Just put me in your suitcase. We'll go.
That is definitely something I would do if I hit the lottery. I'm gonna try my hardest anyway, but.
Well, for those of you that are new to the Scare Factor, and don't forget that we do have a whole section of our website dedicated to haunted house reviews. You can find that at thescarefactor.com. That's about all the time that we have for this week. We thank everybody for joining us so much. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, leave us a review, whatever you can to help this platform understand that you like what we're doing and we're doing a good job. And that'll help us bring more entertainment value to others that would like it. So that's all for today. And as always, stay scary and happy haunting. We will see you next week.